Hi guys, I'm Mary Schaefer, founder of AP Now, the place where you go for all the latest business intelligence you need if you work and manage or have responsibility for the accounts payable function. Today's episode focuses on becoming more assertive with tips from a leading industry expert. It was a webinar AP Now held to celebrate AP Appreciation and Best Practices Week. We had so many requests from people who wanted to listen a second time or who had a conflict and couldn't make the live broadcast. We decided to release it as a podcast. Our expert, Deborah Thomas's clients include a number of recognizable names, including organizations such as Visa, Harvard, Honda, Chase. This is one of her more popular talks. Please check her website to see other soft skills presentations that she gives. Her contact information is at the end and in the show notes. Now, a little bit about Deborah, and then I'll turn the floor over to her. You're in for a real treat. About Deborah Thomas. Deborah brings to you over 20 years of business etiquette, communication, and self-presentation expertise rooted in behavioral science and successful human interaction. This session on becoming more assertive was selected by our audience from a list of several of her talks. Yes, Deborah gives a number of different talks, and you can see them based on the link there to her website. Her clients include a number of recognizable names, including organizations such as Visa, Harvard, Honda, and Chase. This is one of her more popular talks. Her contact information is at the end of the talk. And with that, I turn the floor over to Deborah.
Well, hello, everyone. I am delighted to be here with you presenting this ever so important topic that has become a top request just because it is one of those areas where, all right, how do we become more assertive? How can we actually learn the art of speaking up and being our very own best advocates? So as we move forward with today's content, I have lots of things to share with you that I know you are going to enjoy. So let's talk about assertiveness compared to the other styles that you don't want to be. For instance, the styles that you don't want to be include passive, passive-aggressive, and of course, just downright aggressive. You want to be one of the other styles, which is which one? Assertiveness. So as we go into today's content, I'm going to be describing the different styles for you. And just kind of as you see up on the screen now, I ask, are you ready to roar? So let's just give a little roar and think about how you can grow into your assertiveness. And as we move forward with all of the different styles, I'd like for you to candidly self-assess, because this is where it's going to take a moment for you to really think about, okay, which style am I, and what do I need to honestly address and improve upon? And I do encourage you, as we look at the 4 different styles, make some notes and then come up with a plan, definitely a strategy. And I'm going to be moving the slides forward so that you can see different things that will also help you with your note-taking as well. All right, these are the 4 styles, and I'm going to be describing them in detail. So let's get ready and let's talk about the first one, which is passive. And as you think about what is being passive, well, as you see, I definitely emphasize life is way too short to be passive. The ability to speak up and to speak up at the right moment is critical. So would you say that you really have claimed your voice? Now, honestly, answer that. Do you feel you have? Do you feel that you have a voice. And as I say, yes, life's too short to be passive. Without a doubt it is. So let's emphasize the importance of what does a passive person look like, sound like, behave like. So let's describe it. The passive individual, they just simply cannot say no. Is that you? When you need to say no, does it come to you easily? And do you feel entitled to say no without feeling guilty? Now, be honest about this, because many people will emphasize, oh yes, the guilt sets in when they have to say no, because they would just like to give everyone exactly what they want. But of course, that's just not the reality. So are you able to say no when that is in fact the correct answer? Or are you a notable people pleaser? So in other words, you want everyone to like you. You want to be popular with everyone. You will do favors for people even when you shouldn't, when you don't have time to do that. You worry about offending everyone. And you also worry about what other people think. So is this sounding like you? Statistically, women score higher in the passive area. So of the 4 styles that I'm going to be describing to you, this is one of the 3 that is ineffective. It doesn't get results, and it often leaves you frustrated and stressed out. And as a matter of fact, when I talk about stressed out, because yes, the passive individual does feel more stressed. And how do they feel more stressed? They need to be included by, as I say, invite them to the party. Passive people don't speak up unless you actually call them out and ask for their input. Sometimes just acknowledging that you believe in them and you're recognizing their expertise, or letting them know, I've got your back. The passive person needs to feel supportive. Now, sometimes what I say about the passive individuals, and I think there just might be more than a little bit of truth in this, that passive individuals, they keep the antacid business thriving. And why? Because they keep everything so bottled up inside that they don't say what they want to say. They don't speak up when they should. And sometimes they take it home with them, that there they are on the job and they didn't speak up in that meeting where they really wanted to contribute, but they didn't have the courage, or they didn't feel that they should. Something held them back. Now, something about passive individuals, they often try to play it so safe that they miss a lot of job opportunities. They are often not promoted. They're not considered marketable because, again, the passive individual is trying to play it, as I said, so safe that they often go completely, and the quality of their work often goes completely so below the radar because they haven't really put themselves out there and they're not as visible. Sometimes you just don't even know they're there. So when you think about passivity, it is something that is not going to help you in your career path, and perhaps even personally, it's not going to help you as well, which now leads me to make this point. Many people will say, well, Deborah, are you the same way personally as you are in your professional life? And I emphasize that, yes, for me, it is easier to manage one personality, not multiple personalities. So I am the same way with my family and my friends as I am in my professional world as well. I'm just assertive. So for me, I learned many years ago as a woman that if I did not self-advocate, if I did not speak up for myself, that I would be under that radar and go unnoticed, and I would miss opportunities. So learning to become assertive many years ago, 20 plus years ago, launching some of my career path, then I would not be where I am today. Assertiveness is essential for both men and women, but women have not received the same validation to be assertive. Therefore, higher percentage of women who have in fact remained passive. So as you're making some notes right now, as you're listening to me talk, then go ahead and make those notes. If you have any issues with, for instance, keeping your feelings to yourself when you're upset, why would you do that? Why would you keep it all bottled up? If someone doesn't deliver as promised, when they disappoint, do you just say, oh, well, that's okay? If someone says to you, oh, I'm so sorry, I got so busy that I know I told you I would email you by Friday, and here it is now the next week on Thursday, and I haven't emailed you yet. I'm so sorry, I've been so busy. Do you have a tendency to just say to people, oh, that's okay, I've managed? Stop doing that. Do not tell people that it's okay when it's not okay, because that means you are validating them that it's okay for them to not treat you with the respect that you deserve. So do you regret not speaking up in meetings? Do you feel guilty when you say no? And do you sometimes want to be liked more than you're worried about being respected? So you might be compromising the best of who you are if you remain passive. So let's now move to passive aggressive. Oh, wow, this is the worst of the worst. You do not want to do anything where people would describe you as passive aggressive. It is the antithesis of being assertive. But as I describe this, I bet you will now have certain people come to mind, and you might then be thinking, oh dear, maybe even I have been passive aggressive from time to time. So who are these passive aggressive people? Well, this is who they are. They are the manipulators. They are the schemers. They love to work behind the scenes. In other words, they are pulling strings and you don't even know they are doing it. They are very self-serving with a specific hidden agenda because they know what they want and they know how to get it. And they know how to get it without getting their own hands dirty. They solicit help from their little minions who will do their dirty work for them. For instance, the passive-aggressive person, if they want to spread a rumor around the office or stir the pot, so to speak, they know exactly who to go to, who will report on different things, who will repeat the rumor, and who will help just kind of upsetting things a bit just to make people question. Because the passive-aggressive person, they do things more subtly, such as, you've been in those meetings, haven't you? When someone says nothing, but they roll their eyes. They roll their eyes as though, can you believe she just said that? Can you believe that he did that? But they don't say anything. They just show their irritation and their annoyance through their body language. We know those people, don't we? They don't speak up, but oh, their message is loud and clear. They often have a smirk on their face rather than a sincere, authentic smile that the assertive person would have. And they play games. Oh, yes. What kind of games? How about the silent treatment? When they're angry, when they're upset, when they want to make a point, they just ignore people. They don't talk to people. And then they have another strategy. Talk about this for manipulation. They can sometimes go to the extremes, such as they didn't email you and let you know you were invited or needed to be at a certain meeting. They deliberately sabotage you. Sometimes they're subtle with they send you an email and they copy your manager on that email. Now, there was no justifiable reason for your manager to be on the email, but they copied your manager on there as a pressure point for you. They want to make the point to you that they have alerted your manager as to this situation. So they play all kinds of subtle games. They are sneaky at their best moment, and they often do things in a way where they don't really want you to know that they're the ones behind it, such as they might have a little one-on-one with someone over lunch at the office and say, I'm not sure about her. Do you think she's going to work out? Do you think she's a good fit for our team? Or, I don't know about our manager's idea that he just gave in that meeting. I'm not so sure I'm on board with that. How do you feel? Because they often try to be in the know so that they can deliberately play those games and work people against each other. There was a statistic a number of years ago that I read that was rather unsettling. And the statistic was that every woman in her career lifetime will experience a minimum of 3 deliberate sabotage attempts on her career path by another woman. Ooh, just think about that. That's something that none of us want, right? So 3, of course, I made the joke when I first heard that statistic. Really? Only 3? I think it could be much more than 3. So as you can see with some notes that I have up for you now, keeping them honest. Confront people who are doing things behind your back. Sometimes it takes that little dose of courage from you to let them know, I know what you're up to. Confront them and say, hey, I heard that you said this about my comments in the meeting. I thought you were on board and now I'm discovering you're not. Let's talk about this. Yes, confronting a passive-aggressive person, basically you are putting them on notice because, hey, as you open up the dialogue, we need to work together. Let's focus on that. And a little side note, I do recommend keep them honest by making sure that they know you will document everything. And in your own best interest, you need to document absolutely everything because the passive-aggressive person, again, is not above playing the games to do you in, to sabotage you, and to create a lot of stress for you that you just don't need. So if you catch yourself doing anything that is passive-aggressive, stop yourself, because as I love to quote from Benjamin Franklin, yes, 3 people can keep a secret, provided that 2 of them are dead. So even though the passive-aggressive person tries to be sneaky, the truth has a way of coming out at some point or another. So don't ruin your professional reputation by ever being labeled as that manipulator, as the person who cannot be trusted. And that's the issue with the passive-aggressive person. They cannot be trusted. All right, now let's move on to the last style before we get to assertiveness, the aggressive style. because the three I'm describing for you now, you might be noticing a few things in your own style that perhaps you have been a little passive. Ooh, maybe you were a little passive aggressive one or two times recently. And now, what about outwardly aggressive? The outwardly aggressive person is also today's bully. They are today's bully, and the aggressive person is not the same as the assertive person. Now, as I said earlier, there are more women who score higher in the passive category. There are more men who score higher in the aggressive category. But this is a fluid situation right now. And because of Gen Y and Gen Z women, who certainly are much more assertive, the other styles are kind of being put on notice. But there are people who don't understand that very fine line that is the difference between aggressive behavior and assertive behavior. So let's talk about the aggressive behaviors for a moment. They are demanding. So what is the difference between aggressive and assertive? The assertive person is commanding. Commanding means people want to follow you. They want to collaborate with you. They want to work with you. But the aggressive person, they don't care about any of that. The aggressive person, they just demand. They don't request. They insist. They bully to get their way. And here is the strategy that they often use. They talk you down. They talk over you. They outshout you. They talk louder than you. And what do they do repeatedly? They interrupt you. Aggressive people are known for being very dismissive, where you're in the middle of making your point, perhaps in that meeting or on that conference call, perhaps in your virtual meetings. You're making your point, and the aggressive person just jumps right in, cuts you off, and they try to take control away from you. And they do it rudely. They don't care if they're rude. In fact, the aggressive person enjoys being rude. They actually get a kick out of it because they like that feeling of being so much in control that they're the one running the show, calling the shots. They are the most important person in that moment, and their ego demands it. They have a ginormous ego. In fact, the aggressive person, I make the joke that they often have to walk into the room sideways because their head is too big to walk into the room straight on. That's how big and how inflated their ego is. So they are dismissive. And they are dismissive typically in a way that is going to be very obvious with their sarcasm. They might say things as you're making your point. They might use that comment of whatever, as though, okay, I'm done with you. I've heard enough. So with the aggressive person, they try to intimidate you. They deliberately try to intimidate you with how pushy they are. They definitely try to stare you down with their eye contact. Often they don't blink as much as they should because they want to stare at you and they want to see who will blink first or who will look away first. So the aggressive individual, they have a tendency to see, are you going to collapse in a puddle on the floor? Can they intimidate you to that degree? Will you fall apart? I do make the comment that I find aggressive people easy to deal with. And right now you might be thinking, Deborah, what did you just say? I'm not sure I can believe you just said that. They're easy to deal with the way that you've just described them. Well, the reason they are easy to deal with is because they are so transparent. They put it all right out there in front of you. There is no game playing. They don't care if they call you a name and make you cry. They don't care if they insult you in front of everyone on your team. They don't care if they embarrass you. They are so obvious with how they behave. It's all about them, and they do have a tendency that the manner in which they speak is typically a little more boisterous and loud, condescending and rude. So they're so obvious to all of us. So what can you do as you deal with them? Try to use a little bit of your left brain. Use the left brain logic, as I call it, because left brain is not emotional. So when you use facts, figures, data, which should be easy for everyone listening in today, that's your bailiwick, right?
Yep. That's right.
So there you go. You already have a distinct advantage that when you use that left brain logic, it takes the emotion out of whatever you need to say and how you need to say it. And it's very calming. Also, validate them. Well, I'm dealing with a person who I have determined very aggressive to give a compliment or two, but it has to be sincere. So I might say to Bob, I know you've had years of experience in this area. Thank you for your input. However, I would like to add something that I think will help everyone in this moment. So this is where you claim your voice and you speak up, but because you have not embarrassed Bob, you have actually complimented him, but it needs to be sincere. Never compliment if you don't mean it. But as you then compliment, this then gives you an opportunity to move forward because the aggressive person now thinks, wow, this person's just complimented me. They're not my enemy. They're not going to make me look bad or look weak in front of other people. So this gives you a very strong advantage in that moment. Passive aggressive people, typically you find out who they are because their game eventually shows itself. Passive people are obvious because sometimes you don't even know they're in the meeting because they say nothing. But the aggressive person, you always know when they're around because they make sure you know that. So let me ask you a few questions right now. Are you comfortable saying no in a way where you feel I can say it with strength, I can say it with conviction? Because with both the aggressive and passive aggressive people, you're going to need to make sure that you sound very convicted. Do people feel heard? Regardless of which style you are communicating with in this moment, people need to know they have been heard. So how you acknowledge them is essential. Everyone needs validation. Would you say that you are able to stand your ground on things that you really believe in? You don't fold, you don't fall apart, because this is where your credibility is on the line. How do you stand for what you believe? And by the way, loving any of your input, any of your comments, we welcome that as well, because I want to make sure at the end of today with this particular program that you feel you have a better understanding of the three styles that are counterproductive and that they're not going to work for you. They're not going to get the results you want. So you remove them from your style of communicating, but you can also recognize those three negative styles when you need to deal with them, because you will, because you're going to be talking with, communicating with people who are passive, passive-aggressive, and outwardly aggressive. And never think for a moment that you can change anyone. The only thing you have control over is how you respond to them. And you want to respond assertively, right? Okay, so let's put that assertiveness into motion. As I say, be bold, be assertive, and be you. Now, some of you listening might be thinking right now, but Deborah, I'm actually a more reserved, quiet person. I don't know if I am energetic enough or outgoing enough or exuberant enough to be assertive. Yes, you are. Assertiveness is a communication style. You can be quiet, you can be reserved, and you can still be very assertive. And then the opposite end of the spectrum, if you are outgoing, you can be assertive. Everyone can choose to use assertiveness in their communication style. So it is a style that you learn about, then you put it into your communication portfolio, and you continue to develop it as you grow as a person throughout your lifetime. It's never too early to learn it. It's never too late to learn the benefits of being assertive. There are so many benefits. I'll give you one right now. Time management. Assertive people are better with their time management. Yes, they are. So let's just talk about assertiveness in all its glory. Yes, I say it rocks. It rocks my world. It can rock your world too. Because I'll ask you some questions. Do you think you are able to be consistently open, honest, and very direct in your communication? This is what an assertive person sounds like. Open, honest, direct. Now, don't confuse this with aggressive, because aggressive people are direct also, but they, in addition to being direct, their directness is rude. It is self-serving. It is condescending. It is interruptive. The assertive person is very direct, but they are direct thoughtfully. They are considerate. They are better with their everyday good manners. As they speak up, they don't do it without thinking of, how is my behavior impacting other people? The assertive person does not make it all about themselves. They think about, how is what I'm about to say or what I'm about to do, how is that going to flow outward to others? And they also have no trouble making really good eye contact as they are speaking up with you. They don't look away. They don't avoid eye contact during those difficult moments. Their confidence is palpable. And you may think, oh, but I worry about coming across as cocky. Cocky is not the same as being confident. You need to have a swagger. You need to be able to strut. It's a good thing when you say, I believe in me. I know I am good at what I do. I know my expertise, but I don't feel superior, nor do I act superior to others. That's what the aggressive person does. Now, can you sense the difference there? Can you feel the difference? Confidence means I believe in me. And as I say about myself, you better believe I'm confident, because I know what I'm doing. But I can also tell you right now, all of the things where I am not so great, things I don't do so well. I know me. So my confidence is rooted in my authentic being, in my authentic self. But I'm also confident enough to admit I do not know it all. I am a work in progress. I am still learning. And I'm not going to pretend that I know something that I don't know. So the assertive person, when challenged with something or when struggling, they will tell their boss or their manager, hey, I need some help with this. Or I didn't understand what that point was. Can you explain that to me? Or could you walk me through that? I need some better help with this so that I can really do my job well. So the assertive person does not pretend. Now, the other styles, the passive person, they're afraid for anyone to ever find out what they don't know because they're afraid they're going to lose their job. Well, a great way to lose your job is to pretend and then get caught and be ineffective. The passive aggressive person, they're too busy being sneaky. And then the aggressive person, oh no, they have such an ego that if it is ever found out that they don't know something, they blame other people. For any mistake that happens, any issue that happens, it is never their fault. No, not the aggressive person. They point the finger and blame, blame, blame. But the assertive person openly admits, that was my mistake. That was my error. Or I have to own that. That is on me. So I think by now you're probably sensing the assertive style is also highly respectful, respectful of everyone, even the people who are challenges, even people we have to work with who perhaps we don't care so much for, but we do need to still be proactive as we work with them. So let's talk about the assertive body language. It's time for you to assess you. Can you make that good eye contact? And that includes in your virtual meetings too. You need to make that really good eye contact where you know where to look, where people know you are invested in the moment. Assertive people will be able to sit through the most tedious meeting and they will stay engaged. They show the respect, they show the investment, they speak up and ask the questions. You know they are there. They are present. Body language includes your posture. So when you walk into that meeting, do you walk in with that, I'm here, I'm glad to be here? Last week in one of my programs, guess which row was empty as people were coming in with getting ready for their session? And I finally said, okay, right up here, there are 4 seats, and we had everything spaced out appropriately for social distancing. I don't have people on top of each other in my workshop, so we're limiting the number still right now. But the front row, I think people would have preferred to stand in the back than take the front row. And I said, come on down. Let's make this a Price is Right moment. Come on down. Be in the front row. I said, besides, I'm going to be handing out some candy. Front row people get more. And so I just try to tease them and have some fun. But your posture is saying, I belong. Or, and some women do this, they use non-assertive posturing. They shrink. They minimize themselves. Yes, women do this. Men do not. Where often women will try to minimize their presence, bring their shoulders in tighter, and they want to be less noticeable. Again, what is that? That is passive. That is most certainly ineffective. Would you say that as part of your body language, people could easily walk up to you and they want to say hello because you have a high level of approachability? Have you seen some people where you look at their face and you think, oh goodness, not sure if I want to talk to this person. They just don't look very friendly. They don't look receptive. I'm not suggesting that to be approachable, you have to smile all of the time, because we don't trust people who smile all of the time. No, we don't. because we wonder, okay, what really is going on? But people who are approachable, their facial muscles look more relaxed. They just look easier to be around because the person looks more welcoming compared to someone who gives you the eye like, why are you interrupting me? Why are you bothering me? I'm busy, can't you tell? So do you right now know if you have assertive body language? That's an item to assess. Take the time to do that. What about your word choices? So when you think of your verbal power, do you have the right words that just flow out of you at the right time? Those words that tumble out of your mouth? Would people want to hear more from you? Or are people inclined to think, oh gosh, when is this going to end? The person is droning on and on. Do you have assertive verbal power? Now, what does this mean? Part of it, I highlighted a few minutes ago when I said the assertive person owns it. Yes, they do. But the assertive person, they say what they mean, but they're not mean about it. They're not snarky. And have you noticed we live in a world of snark right now? And guess which style is snarky? Passive aggressive. So the assertive person is not snarky. They're not going to speak in a way that is going to embarrass or humiliate or sound rude or condescending like the aggressive person. They are more thoughtful. They weigh their words. They're more judicious. Take the time with your words, both in your spoken word, but also with the emails you send. Reread those before you send them to make sure they come across assertively. Because as I open up my emails, as I am reading my messages, my text back and forth with Mary, I was saying to her earlier how much I enjoy her directness. She gets to the point, but she's thoughtful. She's generous. She's not too short, but she makes her points in a very concise manner. So are you able to do that? So you know what people do when they read an email? They actually are hearing you talk. So does that match when you are actually on the phone with someone? When you are in person in a meeting with someone? Would you say that your spoken word equally matches assertively your written word? You want to use the tact and tone of the assertive person. Please don't ramble. Unfortunately, there is a statistic, and I must share it with you. I do believe we're going to see a change in this down the road sooner than later. But the statistic has been that for every one word a man uses, on average, a woman uses 4. He uses 1 word, she uses 4. Do you get my point? In other words, we need to wrap it up more quickly as women, make our point, and remember that assertively, you start with the information. You decide when you will add conversation. So now think about that for a moment. Some people start with chit-chat, conversation, and there are people like me, a woman, who is listening thinking, when are you ever going to make your point? I don't need to hear all of this. So, are you guilty of doing that? If you are, that's another passive behavior when you feel you have to over justify or over explain. So you want that tone of being very certain, very believable, very confident, but move on without taking up too much unnecessary time. I read the body language and the styles of the people with whom I'm talking. And I can always tell within a matter of 2 or 3 sentences, do I need to make my point or very quickly, or do I need to use a little more empathy at the beginning and have that chit chat with them? And if there is time for that, and if that is what they need, then I am happy to comply. Well, kind of happy, not always happy. So that's something for you to think about. Are you able to read other people so that as an assertive person, you're able to make that quick, in the moment communication adjustment? Because communication is not a one size fits all, not at all. Which also means you need to think about your fantabulous assertive attitude. And your assertive attitude, yes, there is an attitude for the assertive person as well. And the attitude is a combination of things. Oh, so many things. Reliability, timeliness, zero excuses, delivering as promised. Oh my. When someone, as I said earlier, says to me, oh, Deborah, I'm so sorry, I didn't do this, didn't do that, I don't say it's okay. I'm not going to say something's okay when it wasn't. But I do know that there are always legitimate reasons things happen. There are always things that happen. But don't we know people who we cannot count on? We all have people in our lives like that, don't we? People who cancel at the last moment. People who say they're going to do something and then find a reason to not do it. People who come up with the wildest excuses, worse than the dog ate the homework, but they come up with excuses for why they didn't deliver. And you know they are not being truthful. And who is that? That's the passive-aggressive person who just isn't willing to be truthful. The assertive attitude also includes a high level of optimism. And I want to give the caveat to this, that being optimistic does not mean that everything is perfect and everything is just wonderful and that you are problem-free. No, not at all. Being optimistic means you choose a positive approach to just life in general, that you determine that you're going to approach it with that degree of hopefulness, with a certain level of happiness in your attitude, but it does not mean you play the fool. I'm incredibly optimistic. I am full of daily sunshine. That's just who I am. But oh no, I do not play the fool, and I do not have time for people who try to play the fool. People who are optimistic have a higher EQ. They have a higher emotional intelligence. So when you think of emotional intelligence, it's also called EQ. They are one and the same. People who have assertiveness as part of their style, automatically you have a higher EQ. That alone is worth being in today's webinar, to wrap your mind around that, to realize it is the #1 attribute right now that employers are saying they need, they want, and it is sorely missing in people today. A high EQ. People who have a high EQ are more compassionate. They definitely have higher empathy, but they are also better listeners. So all of those things will impact you and how you reach those goals, have better, more effective communication with people. And that includes having that can-do attitude. Because your can-do attitude means you're willing to just deal with things head on. In fact, that's one of my mantras. I say it all the time, bring it on, because I'm ready for you. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean my strength is not going to be tested, but I am not going to shrink from a challenge ever. but I've also done my homework in advance, so I'm ready for it. That's what an assertive person does. They are ready. They are prepared. I would like to give you a few assertive attributes that are also things you can check off in your mind right now. These are all attributes that are associated with the assertive person of today. Collaborative, approachable, accountable, respectful, flexible. In other words, you thought the day was going to go one way, and oh no, it's turned upside down on its head. Available. Are you available? Do you communicate your availability? Are you direct? Are you diplomatic? Confident? And are you highly responsive? People would describe you as being a stress reducer, not a stress increaser. You influence people when you use those type of attributes. So would you say right now, you're ready to now grow your backbone? That I have said a few things where you've thought, this isn't going to be as hard as I thought it was. Listening to Deborah, I realized that being assertive is a choice. It is something that I know I can do. So I'm going to take at least one baby step today to move myself forward. I'm going to work on a strategy. Maybe I'm going to practice saying no, or I'm going to practice speaking up in a meeting. I'm now going to go to meetings where I'm prepared. I have some questions in mind. This is where I'm going to start. I need to tackle this first. I need to know and let people know that I'm here, I have a presence, and I've got something to say. I want to be heard. So what is your mood? And by the way, you have to show people. Don't just tell people, you need to show people. So you have to do more than walk the talk. It needs to be very consistent. And I know you've got it within you to do this. So think about your mood. Do you feel strong? Do you feel courageous? Are you feeling more prepared to take this on? Are you feeling very accountable that no one can do this for me? I need to do this. And are you ready to be consistent? So thank you so much for listening to me, and I'm ready for some questions now.
Okay, so we've got a few here, and if you have the audience have any more, enter them in the box marked question, hit enter, and we're going to take as many as we can. So Deborah, you mentioned the words ways to effectively self-advocate. I know this is something I'm terrible at, and I suspect some of our audience could use a few hints. So do you have some hints for us on that?
I do. I suggest something as simple as write down a few things where you know you excel. In order for you to self-advocate, you really have to dig deep and find out what you believe in yourself. How do you demonstrate that you believe in yourself? Because often a lot of people, they're not comfortable showcasing, for instance, their knowledge. They're not comfortable showcasing some of their expertise. So choose something where you think people are going to benefit from this if I share it. So look at yourself as being someone who is helping others. So by you self-advocating and you sharing your knowledge and your expertise, you are actually helping other people. And so when you get out of your own feeling of maybe lacking a little confidence in that, you'll realize, all right, because I'm willing to speak up, this isn't just going to benefit me. Look at how many other people who haven't had the courage, now they can learn from me.
Okay, so then another thing that you mentioned, which I have a million questions on, but I'm only going to ask you a few, is email. I know sometimes I've gotten an email from someone and I think, oh, they must be angry with me because it's so curt. And in actuality, they're not. And I know I've started, as you recommend, to stop and read my emails before I send them, or at least I try and do that. And sometimes I realize they're quite curt. and then I go in and I, try and fix it. So do you have any tips on this for us?
I do. For instance, myself, I am very impatient. I
Mm-hmm.
am not a patient person. Therefore, I have to go back and reread, but I reread for tone. And one of the tips is when in doubt, actually read your email out loud. You don't have to do it in front of other people, but you need to read it for tone to make sure that when people hear it, it sounds authentically like you, but that your tone is exactly how it needs to be. So you can be very direct and very specific, but you're going to want to add a few words such as all the pleasantries of thank you, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But be careful that you don't say things that sound passive aggressive, such as in my previous email I mentioned, or I believe you had already heard. Those are all passive aggressive and condescending statements. So make sure that it sounds like what you want it to be sounding like as part of, do I want to sound helpful? Do I want to sound as I'm here with you? Do I want to sound patient? Make sure you read it for those attitudes.
Okay. How do you ask your staff or people to do what you want them to do with compassion? Because sometimes, our people have to ask people to do stuff that's not real popular.
Yes, sometimes you can do what is called a lead-in statement. So before you give people the news that they're not going to want to hear, you could start with a lead-in statement. So you could start with something such as, I want to thank you in advance because I know what I'm about to ask you may not be your favorite thing to do, but it is necessary. So the very fact that I said, but it is necessary, that's being very assertive. My compassion started out with, I identify with you. I am relating to, I know how you're going to feel. So the assertive person definitely is relatable. You feel as though they are walking in your shoes with you. So using that compassion, using a statement that identifies with them really helps set the tone.
Okay. This, I call it after the fact. Sometimes something will happen and I haven't spoken up. And then I'll go home and I'll think about it and I'll be like, oh, I wish I said this, or I wish I said that, or I should have pointed this out. Is there anything you can do to fix that after the fact?
First question is to ask yourself, is it necessary to bring it up? And is there going to be a benefit to bringing it up? So first ask yourself that, is there going to be something that will be a benefit to them, to myself? Is it necessary? Because sometimes we want to go back and fix something that frankly people have already forgotten and maybe it doesn't need fixed.
Right. One person who probably never needed help becoming more assertive is Jeff Bezos. We recently did a session on AP lessons learned from Jeff Bezos. It's episode 114. On YouTube, a link will appear to the left. As always, I very much appreciate those thumbs up, comments, and subscribes. And of course, please feel free to share this episode with any of your colleagues who you may feel might benefit from this session. Be bold, be you.